The Labubu doll is said to be a sacred totem, woven with prayers to protect children from illness and evil spirits. Parents claim they are holy, a conduit for divine protection, but for every whispered prayer of thanks, there is a scream swallowed by the night. Others claim they are profoundly unholy, that the rituals used to create them don't trap evil out, but in, that the vacant, beaded eyes don't watch for demons, but with them. At Bound in Fear, we don't deal in superstition. We pursue the truth behind the legends. We have encountered stories, credible, terrifying accounts, where these dolls were not guardians but prisons for something ancient and malicious. These are not fairy tales. These are the cases that defy explanation. If you believe the world is as it seems, look away now. But if you seek the truth, subscribe to Bound in Fear and hit the notification bell. What you are about to hear will bind you in fear. Story 1. The Doll That Sang Lullabies. In a small Appalachian town, a midwife named Ilara used a Labubu doll, gifted by a traveler, to soothe a colicky baby named Thomas. It worked miraculously. The child would calm instantly the moment the doll was placed in his crib. The parents called it a holy blessing. The problems began when Thomas started speaking. His first words weren't mama or dada. They were the lyrics to a strange, discordant lullaby his parents had never heard. They'd find him awake in the middle of the night, having full conversations with the doll, which he called Boo-Boo. One evening, Ilara stayed late. As she rocked Thomas, she heard it, a faint, raspy humming from the nursery. Peeking in, she saw the room was empty except for the baby, fast asleep. The humming was coming from the doll, propped up in the corner. Its cloth mouth wasn't moving, but the sound was undeniably emanating from it. It was the same lullaby Thomas sang. Terrified, Ilara decided to remove the doll. The moment she lifted it from the crib, Thomas's eyes snapped open. They were not the eyes of a toddler. They were black, depthless pools. He spoke in a guttural, ancient voice that was not his own. "You do not dismiss me, woman. I am his night watchman." Ilara fled, but the voice followed her in whispers. She returned the next day to find the family gone. The house was empty, save for the Labubu doll, sitting neatly in the center of the living room floor. On the wall behind it, scrawled in what looked like charcoal, was a single sentence: "He is with me now." The family was never seen again. Story 2. The Unraveling. A university anthropologist, Dr. Aris Thorne, acquired a Labubu doll at a market in Ghana. The seller warned it was not for play and had old magic. Aris, a skeptic, saw it only as a cultural artifact. He displayed it in his study, boasting to colleagues about its protective power, treating the legend as a charming novelty. The phenomenon started subtly. Aris would find his papers, meticulously organized, slightly rearranged. Then his books would be found open to pages discussing demonic possession or exorcism rituals. He blamed sleepwalking. Then the doll began to move. It was never a dramatic shift. One day it would be facing his desk. The next morning it would be facing the window. Then it would be turned completely around, facing the wall. The final straw was when he entered his study to find it holding a letter opener it had somehow pulled from his desk drawer. Shaken, he decided to get rid of it. As he reached for it, the doll's head turned to look at him, its beaded eyes seeming to gleam. The threads of its body began to unravel on their own, not falling loose, but slithering like thin, black snakes across his desk. They wrapped around his wrist, cold as a corpse and impossibly strong, pulling his hand toward the letter opener. A struggle ensued, a silent, horrific tug-of-war against a doll. With a desperate yell, he yanked his hand free, grabbed the doll and threw it into his fireplace, lighting it on fire. As the flames consumed it, a piercing shriek filled the room, a sound of pure, spectral agony. The fire suddenly died, leaving no ash, no remnant of the doll. Only the smell of burnt hair and a deep freezing cold that settled permanently in the room. Dr. Thorne never collected another artifact again. Story 3. The Shadow in the Nursery. A young couple, Mark and Chloe, received a Labubu doll as a gift. After their multiple miscarriages, a relative claimed it would bless the womb and ensure a healthy pregnancy. Miraculously, Chloe carried to term and gave birth to a healthy girl, Lily. They credited the doll, calling it their miracle. Lily was a happy baby, but she was obsessed with the doll. She would giggle and coo at it for hours. The baby monitor began to pick up interference, soft, static-laced whispers that seemed to respond to Lily's babbling. They wrote it off as a faulty device. The horror began when they reviewed the nursery camera footage. In the dead of night, they saw it. A tall, impossibly thin shadow would detach itself from the corner of the room where the doll sat. This shadow man, featureless and dark, would bend over Lily's crib, its form shifting and wavering. Lily wouldn't cry. She would watch it, her eyes wide and smiling. One night, Chloe woke to the sound of giggling from the nursery. It wasn't Lily's light laugh. It was deeper, distorted. She crept to the door and peered in. The Labubu doll was no longer on the shelf. It was in the crib, sitting on Lily's chest, and it was moving, rocking back and forth. The distorted giggling was coming from it. As Chloe screamed and rushed in, the doll instantly fell still, becoming just a doll. But Lily's tiny hand was wrapped around its neck, not with innocence, but with a possessive, terrifying grip. The baby looked at her mother, and in a voice that was a grotesque imitation of a child's, whispered, "Mama, Boo-Boo says it's my turn." Now, the family had the house blessed by every priest and shaman they could find. The activity lessened but never stopped. They keep the doll locked in a lead-lined box in their attic, but on the quietest nights they can still hear the faint, rhythmic sound of something rocking back and forth, back and forth. 3 stories, 3 families, 1 object. Coincidence, mass hysteria, or something more? The line between the holy and the unholy is often just a thread that can easily unravel. What is truly bound within these dolls? We may never know, for sure, but the search for the truth continues. This is Bound in Fear. We deliver the stories you're not supposed to hear, the stories that are real. Subscribe, because the next story might be happening right next door.